people are very surprised to hear is that the city of Joliet, the city's sales tax is the highest sales tax of any surrounding community. And my opponent voted for those taxes. Okay, also voted to increase utility fees. So, you know, those are some of the concerns of the voters that I hear when walking through the district. Again, one of the unique characteristics of the fact that we live in two different counties, and some of the voters in Kendall County do feel like they are getting a short shrift in the city in terms of city services and in terms of the city's attention.
Thank you. Yeah, just to discuss, I think the residents in District 3 have really the same desires as any residents in the city. They want to feel safe. They want to make sure that that the public improvements are kept up and well kept. They want to make sure that that they have emergency management systems provided. And as far as the district goes, as far as being neglected, I will tell you when I came on, I don't know what the percentage was in 2011 when I was first elected, but I can tell you right now, the city's budget, 75% of every dollar in the city's corporate fund goes for police, fire, emergency management systems, and public works. Okay, 75% of every dollar in the corporate fund goes for that. So we basically, as a council, and myself included, have made a conscientious effort to focus on those core city services. When I got on, we were spending money on a lot of different things, and we had to cut out those programs, unfortunately. It's a new day. The riverboat money, probably 10 years ago, we were taking in close to $40 million. That number is down to about 19 million. So we had to make some hard decisions, and we did that. And that's why you're seeing a balanced city budget. That's why you're seeing a surplus. But what we've never lost sight of is the providing those basic core city services of police, fire, emergency management, and taking care of our public works, our public roadways. With respect to our district being shortchanged, I have to strenuously disagree with my candidate. I will tell you, in our district that serves our district, we have a fire station, Fire Station 10, which I fought hard back in 2011. It was going to be closed. I fought hard to keep that open, and we did. And that serves our district.
10 seconds.
We have a police substation in our district. In fact, it's in Kendall County. We have a police substation that services our district. You don't have to go to downtown Joliet. You can go right to that police substation. We also have a public works facility in our district. So we're definitely being served, and we spend a lot of money in our district. Could we do more? Yes. But there's other districts where we have to share that time. Thank you.
It's good to hear that there's two accountants because we're going to get a little more serious about money here. The city has some major assets that they're responsible for, like Union Station, Silver Cross Field, and depending on how the council votes, Evergreen Terrace. And soon to be added to that list is a new intermodal transportation center. The governor this last couple of weeks has been talking about cutting back monies from the state. And the other evening at one of the council meetings, when you discussed the purchase of a scoreboard, it was even considered to borrow $250,000, which was amazing to me. I found that quite disturbing, actually. So I don't want to know what the problems are, because I think a lot of them are obvious and most of them could be solved by money we're not going to get. How are you going to manage these assets and find the new revenue sources? What are you going to do to find those new revenue sources? Because gaming money, it's only been 7 years, by the way, has been declining every year since the peak in 2007 when it was 36 million. So how are you going to replace that money? Because that money is used, that gaming revenue, that $19 million of gaming revenue, which no one else in the state has. Certainly there's only 8 other gaming communities, casino communities that had that. Most of them have used that for capital projects. So how are you going to replace that declining revenue and actually get off of that revenue? And let's start with District 2.
Those are tough decisions for the city, and as a park board member, the Joliet Park District owns many assets, many facilities, and I believe if you do own a facility and you own a building or a structure, that you are responsible for maintaining it to the utmost. So the city has some of these assets. I do believe that they need to maintain those. They need to commit to those and maintain them. Now, as far as financing goes, I would be opposed to raising taxes or raising fees on the citizens. One of the ways to bring in more revenue to the city would be to stimulate business, and business that brings in jobs, business that brings in tax revenue through that manner. I would not want to fund those assets or maintain those assets on the backs of the current Joliet taxpayers. I do think the city of Joliet needs to be a little more aggressive in its solicitation of businesses, solicitation of jobs, trying to get more people employed. I know we've brought some in, but we need good quality, high-paying jobs. Some of the, we target.
If I might interrupt you, because I'd like to have a conversation about this. I think that we can get to some things quicker than having everybody just dialogue up here. That's a good point, but how are you going to do that? How are you going to bring those, stimulate that business, bring it to town?
I think we need to get more aggressive. We need to sell ourselves a little more, and rather than necessarily trying to open an Olive Garden or Chipotle, there's nothing wrong with those, but we maybe need bigger industries and bigger businesses, and maybe, why aren't we making I-55 and I-80 a technology corridor? You see that in other cities where when they have major highways intersecting, big companies are using that corridor for their corporate offices. So thinking big, thinking better, trying to bring the mall in, and work on bringing that mall into Joliet. I do think Joliet needs to sell itself better. Romeoville, Bolingbrook, Naperville, those cities are. I think we need to take pride in Joliet and go out and try to attract them. Now, is it easier said than done? Yes, it is.
And I'm going to let Pat answer that question.
Thank you, Wayne. I know you had spoke a little bit about the scoreboard at the Silver Cross Field. I was at the council meeting when individuals from the leaseholders there spoke about the revenue that field brings in. I realize a $350,000 expense is a big number, but based on the numbers he gave to us, the citizens of Joliet, it's a very small number that we need that as a revenue source. We need to look at what revenue sources are there. I'm sorry that the scoreboard is questionable how much use it is. I think we need to take a hard look and meet with our city manager and the heads of the department and ask them, is there any room in your budgets, or what in your budget could we need to move around, or is there, what are other cities that you're seeing that we're competing with for the different businesses doing, and how we would move them here? I know there was some people disappointed with the movie theater being torn down, and the city Mayor Durrani showed the statistics on how much revenue Dick's Sports in taxes would bring in. That would be the size of the business that we need to aggressively go after, whether it's through real estate individuals who are involved in securing these larger corporations. We do have a lot of jobs now down at Centerpoint that there might be some issues that are not as high paying as we would like, and I understand that, but it's also work, and we need as many jobs as we can generate here.
We're going to come to District 3 for the next part of that. How would you propose, right, to replace the gaming revenue? And do you think it's a good idea? Because, like as it's been brought forth, we use it to pay the light bill every day, rather than for capital projects. And when a $250,000, $360,000 scoreboard comes up, we don't have the money to do it. How would you replace that income, or do you think it's necessary?
Well, there's two ways to obviously increase the revenue in the city. It's either raise taxes, essentially, or increase it through growing the economy. And I'm obviously a proponent of growing the economy and not increasing a tax burden on the current citizens of this city, but also not dissuading businesses from coming into the city because of an inordinate tax burden, and more importantly, an inordinate, bureaucratic hurdles to jump. The other thing is that you're right. Why are we buying the scoreboard when we have so many other issues that need to be addressed? Our police department is undermanned by 40 officers. Okay, we need to take a hard look at reducing and eventually, I think, eliminating the subsidies that would provide to institutions such as the Rialto Theater. That theater has garnered almost $8 million of city revenue since 2005, I believe. We also need to take a look at selling Silver Cross Field. Man, I quite honestly, if that facility is a boon to the economy or draws the people, the individuals that it does to this area, I think it could be run far more efficiently and better by some private entity. I don't think city government should be in the business of owning a baseball diamond.
John, how do you feel about that?
Well, first of all, let me just address a couple of things here. With respect to the Rialto, I know Mr. Polakaitis would like to eliminate that Rialto subsidy that the city gives. But let me tell you, if we eliminated that subsidy that the city gives, okay, the Rialto would close. The Rialto would close. And you know what would happen if the Rialto, that's our cultural center, okay? That's our cultural center, who we are as a people, okay? They serve young people, they provide entertainment. Can they do a better job of managing themselves and bringing in acts? Of course they can. Of course they can. I think everybody could consider, whether in their business or their professional life, that they could do things better. But I don't view the Rialto, the money that the city gets Rialto, as a cost. I view it as an investment. In fact, we had Camaros and Associates. They've done a downtown master plan. You want to know what they're centering it on? The Rialto. They're centering the redevelopment on downtown on the Rialto because it's that important. It's not a cost, it's an investment. Now, to get to the point here with respect to how I think we can stimulate this economy or help stimulate our economy more, let me just make one point though.
You got 30 seconds.
Oh, okay, I would do three things. One is I think we need to hire a lobbyist in the city of Joliet. We are the fourth largest city in the state of Illinois. We do not have a lobbyist. The reason why I say that, we are missing out on dollars downstate. We're missing out on grant dollars. We're missing out because it's a very complicated structure down there. Our state reps and state senators who do an excellent job, they need a lobbyist to bring issues to them that concern us. The second thing I would do, okay, we have the Will County Center for Economic Development. They do a fantastic job. Guess what? They're concerned about Will County as a whole, okay? I'm concerned about Joliet. We need a Joliet Center of Economic Development where we have Joliet business people and Joliet labor that come together, that meet regularly and solicit new business. We have our business people go out and talk to potential businesses that will to sell ourselves, okay? So I'd like to see a Joliet City of Economic Development. We actually took one step towards that. In fact, Councilman Hugg sits on a committee that is an economic development committee. I'd like to take that one step further. I'd like to have a committee made up of our business people, made up of residents that are concentrated on bringing business to the city of Joliet, not necessarily just Will County. Because when Silver Cross Field left Joliet, the Will County CED was fine with that. It went from Joliet to New Lenox. The Joliet CED would not have stood for that.
Time.
Thank you.
District 1, pass it on down there. What's your feeling about selling Silver Cross Field, and also how do you see the redevelopment of Evergreen Terrace? And the reason I ask those two questions because these are two very big money projects. That one, which drains a lot of money, even though the baseball organization painted a bright picture. The reality is that in the last 5 years, they have expenses have exceeded revenues, according to City Manager Jim Hock. So how are we going to turn that around? Should we retain it or should we sell it? And how do you plan on proceeding with the redevelopment of Evergreen Terrace?
First of all, and I'll be clear, we have nearly $1.5 million discretionary funding. As Councilman Duro mentioned earlier, we don't always agree on the council. Yes, I've been an advocate since 2011. To take away the discretionary spending or gifts that we give to the Alto, the theater, and IPOC. Because yes, they're gonna have a tighter budget. We have a tight budget, nobody's rushing to give us money. We have to take care of our core services. Now, the city portion of the Rialto budget is about 20%. So the alarm bell being rung that would close down, not just by John, but by some people in the community, is not true if they run it correct. There'd be a 20% reduction. Does that mean a 20% reduction in shows? I'm not sure. Wayne, I'll be very direct. You asked specifically about the ballpark, we should sell it.
Terry?
It's going to be very difficult to sell, but we should sell it. It's a financial drain on the city, just like the water park was. I was one of the ones that pushed hardest starting in 2011 to find an answer to the water park. And we saved about $150,000 by buying out of our commitment for $900,000 we paid instead of what would have been $1.4 million. And I'm glad we were able to convince the rest of the council to do that, because with what's coming in the future with the cuts from the governor, and then also the additional gaming that probably is going to happen in Chicago, as well as out west of us in what I call Country Club Hills area. I'm glad we got that off our plate back then when we could budget and afford it. So yes, I would sell the ballpark. We should not, as a city, be in the private sector being landlords. Our attempts at being landlords have been colossal failures every time we've done it. And there it is in a nutshell. Next question you asked, Evergreen Terrace. Evergreen Terrace is going to cost the city, in my estimation, and I have to make my best educated estimation. I myself, like Pat Mudrin, as an insurance professional, and I have a lot of friends in the development industry, commercial development. We're going to float a bond just to buy it for $20 million. Well, actually, it's going to be $15 million and $77,000. $15 million and $77,000. That's just to buy it. Now, that's going to cost us over 20 years about, I have to readjust from the $20 million. It's going to cost the city about $450,000 minimum out of the general fund for 20 years. It's also going to take the money they held back, which is called CDBG, which is supposed to revitalize all neighborhoods citywide. That's going to be committed to Evergreen Terrace too. So no, I do not support it. We do not have a plan for Evergreen Terrace.
Time.
We have absolutely no estimate.
Wayne, your original question about replacing gaming revenue is interesting to me on a couple of different levels, but ultimately as a manager, what I do for a living, we should always prepare for the worst case scenario. So when I hear how will we replace, and specifically how will you replace it, definitely it's not up to any of us, any of the candidates or even the mayor singularly to try to replace that revenue. That'll have to come from a group effort. But I think we should prepare to not replace dollar for dollar the gaming revenue. There's nothing particularly unique about gaming anymore, like it used to be when it first came, burger boats and the slot machines. It's going to expand. I agree with Larry. Chicago, it's going to expand everywhere. So that the novelty of gaming revenue as a main revenue source for the city is something that Joliet should prepare to have off the books eventually. Might even be $10, $15 million. As far as the baseball stadium goes, and the right outfield, the major challenge that I see is I'd like to have a discussion about what happens to these venues when they're closed, partially during the week or fully. And what does a vacant baseball stadium look like to the city of Joliet? And what do the people who are running our city for us, the managers and the different department heads, what do they feel a vacant baseball field will actually look like? Selling the baseball field is great. Putting something up for sale is, the idea is fine, but those of us who try to sell a home in the past 7 or 8 years, it can be kind of difficult to do. So we have to think about what does it mean for that piece of property to sit vacant or sit dormant, and will that increase crime? It's not in my district, but obviously as a council person I'll be asked to comment on it. And I can't just selfishly think about District 1 and how it's so far away from the baseball field. But I definitely think it's a challenging question. On the Evergreen Terrace side too, that's another challenging issue. I like less dense residential living arrangements, but anytime I look at a place like Evergreen
10 seconds.
Yeah, my original understanding from the project was that the idea was to purchase it because of safety. And all of us up here are advocating for increased safety, increased policing in our district. So if that was the original reason to go forward with the project, that's the goal, that's the track that we set ourselves down.
I'm going to shift gears a little bit, come back to District 3, or District 2. A few months ago, second attempt to redistrict the city. As you all know, every 10 years we have to redistrict according to population, ethnicity, and so forth. The city decided on the new boundaries, which is, I believe this is the first election under the newer boundaries. And the proposal that was advanced had to do with eliminating the at-large districts and having 8 representative districts. Starting with you, John, why don't you tell us why that's a good idea or a bad idea?
Yeah, thank you, Wayne. I particularly don't like the idea of eliminating the at-large, to be honest. I think that right now, the voters, the residents in the city of Joliet have the opportunity to vote for 5 out of the 9 elected officials up there. They can vote for their district representative, they can vote for 3 at-large, and they vote for the mayor. So they basically vote for a majority of the city council and the mayor right now. And to take that away from them, I think would be disingenuous. I also think that the at-large, they play a key role in city government. For example, if there's a city councilman that possibly a resident is not getting the attention that they think they deserve, you can always go to your councilman at large, or one of the 3 councilmen at large. So, I particularly like the at-large system. I think it's served us over the last 50, 60 years. So, that concerns me.
10 seconds.
I also think if we were to, and I think we can keep the at-large, but if we were to make an adjustment, what we might want to consider is what they do in District 86, the school district. I believe there's an at-large for the east side of Joliet, there's an at-large for the west side of Joliet, and then maybe have an at-large, an actual citywide at-large. So I would support something like that, but just eliminating the at-large. I would.
Time. Ray?
I know this will be a shock, but I'm in disagreement with my opponent here. Personally, and I've had firsthand experience, these districts currently are huge, okay? I know my district is. And it takes an inordinate amount of time just to walk through that district and visit individual voters and go to individual homes. I would be in favor of looking at creating single-member districts to make them smaller, to make them, the councilman, responsible for a smaller area so that they could address the issues in their particular area. I want to keep the councilman closer to the voters. And as far as, a councilman not addressing someone's issue, well, every 4 years, you've got a chance. If that person is not addressing the issues of the district, and if they're not, responding to their constituents' concerns, you have what we call a vote, and you can vote those individuals out.
I see myself as a resident of Joliet in its entirety. I've voted here I'm 65 years old, I've voted here for the last 40-some years, and I like the idea that I get to vote for the majority of the city council. I get to vote for my 3 at-large, I get to vote for the mayor, and I get to vote for my local councilman. I'm open to hearing how the 8 districts would work. I've not read enough about it to vote against it, but I don't see where we have a problem with the way it's been running at this time.
I understand why the proposal for 8 districts was brought forward and why it was placed on, or moving forward to be placed on a ballot for a referendum to let the citizens decide. My concern with moving to that proposal is currently right now, individuals, all individuals in the city of Joliet actually get to vote for 5 reps on the city council. You get the 3 at large, the district councilman, and the mayor. So you have 5 people that you get to go into and vote for. Concern with the 8 proposal was that would reduce you to 1 person and the mayor, so go from 5 to 2. I think there's some discussion that can be had about is there a better organization for the city council if certain groups feel that the representation isn't fair. I'm not sure that the 8 was the correct answer, but I do think that there may be some possibility for some discussion to make sure that all city elections are fair and represent everybody in the future.
Larry?
My personal opinion doesn't matter. We have a process. Here's my question. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a good idea?
I have a question. Is any of the current council, the districts, ever spoke of having too many constituents to address?
I've not heard that complaint. So, right, my question is, and I can point to the camera and ask everybody watching, because there's even more people that watches, what is your opinion? And that's called referendum, and that's democracy. So, I think this issue is so huge, because you're talking about completely changing the style and structure of your government that will follow the process that's available. There's 2 ways to do it. The way it's done 99.9% of the time through petition. And you get the petition, you file them, and it goes on the ballot, and every voter who's interested in coming out will vote for or against it. And yes, there is the lesser known, let the council put it on there, vote to put it on there as a referendum. I don't believe in that. I said that. I talked to people on both sides of the issues that make some good points. I've had people on the side of the issue for 8 districts tell me, well, why don't the council, do we just vote to put it on? Well, that's an important issue for that group of people collecting signatures. But there's another 100 issues out there that are important to other residents. So I think that the petition, the more preferred petition process is a good filtering system to make it a legitimate concern. Engage the concern amongst the greater population.
10 seconds.
With that said, it should be voted on by the people.
I think that, especially in reading about this subject, because I find it to be more of an issue of pure democracy more than representation. I'm a firm believer that government belongs to the people. If the people get organized and want to make a change, then they have every right to try to do so. And my actual individual opinion on whether or not we're having more representation, it doesn't affect me as much living in District 1 now, but I often wonder if I was back living in District 5, would it affect me more? And I think people want a council person that they can have access to who cares about the issues of their district. They don't want to feel left out. And if that means that the people get organized and try to form a district, then that's what they try to do.
Just one editorial comment on that, because I've been involved in that issue, writing about that issue for some time. But one of the things that I think a lot of oftentimes is not understood is it just isn't just population, but it's the size of the districts. District 5, for instance, which you mentioned, goes all the way from New Lenox all the way out to the junior college. It would take you close to half an hour just to drive across the district. So sometimes it's not just a matter of population, how many people you represent, but how have you divided those up? And thank you for all of your answers. I'm going to give you a real quick one here. And we'll start down there with you, Terry. And you can I'll give you 30 seconds, but you can just answer yes or no. Are you in favor of raising any form of the taxes, be it sales taxes, or I believe sales tax we're at the max, but any form of fee or property tax increases, water and sewer rate increases? Are you in favor of doing that if it would meet the revenue needs?
As of now, I'm not in favor of raising any tax.
As I said in 2011, when I voted against the 4 tax increases, including the retail tax, let's go to the budget. And we'll continually go to the budget, and let's make sure that we're using the money wisely. So I see no reason to raise taxes right now, and let's continue to go through the budget and to prioritize. And as I mentioned earlier, there's some discretion discretionary spending out there that we move or